Hi guys, it's your host Josh Munns from Recovery Talks 24/7. We have an amazing interview that we're going to be having today with a lovely lady called Carly. But just to let you guys know that we are sponsored by the amazing company called Money Wellness. Now, Money Wellness, they deal with all of your debt issues. So if any of you have any sort of debt at the moment, then I really highly recommend to get in contact with this company, Money Wellness, because they supported me through my debt journey. And I managed to get myself on a particular program with them to be able to get myself debt free. What I normally do is I normally give you guys a contact number. You can contact them at any time. Don't be shy. Don't be nervous. They are absolutely amazing. So yeah, today we have Carly Charles with us today, who I actually met on TikTok from looking at some of her content, and I was just absolutely blown away through what she's been sharing about her journey quite openly on TikTok as well. And as we all know, obviously TikTok is a massive social media platform for a lot of people, and I've noticed that there's so many more people out there that are sharing about their recovery journey. And without further ado, I want to have a chat with Carly. How are you doing today, Carly? Are you okay?
Hi Josh, I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
That's all right. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. So Carly, I really want to know, and so my listeners at home would love to just know about your story and about your background, because I've seen through your content on TikTok, but I really want you to kind of be able to share that openly with the guys that may be listening today, just about a bit about yourself and about your background and what led you to start using drugs, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I had quite a normal background, I guess. I grew up with two parents. We weren't poor, we weren't particularly rich, we were fine. They stayed together. I had a successful school life. I was clever, I was intelligent, I did well at school. There was no real reason in my background that could say that I was going to become an addict. But I personally always knew that I was different and always felt slightly different. I was always bored. I was always restless. I always wanted more. I was always quite outrageous. I always pushed boundaries. I always did what other people wouldn't. I got into trouble and um, but didn't I just really thought I was sort of a bit wild and a bit of a free spirit, but nothing really growing up as a child that would indicate that I was going to become like a drug addict and alcoholic, to be honest. Had my first drink when I was 12, and I remember it vividly. I was in a disco in Tenerife, like a nightclub, if you like, sort of attached to the hotel. And I had a Cinzano lemonade, and like this was in the 80s because I'm quite old. I had a Cinzano lemonade, and Soul to Soul was playing, and I just remember feeling amazing, really grown up, really, um, I just thought I was something special. I think I had this huge ego. Um, and from then, I think alcohol just became something, fun and exciting and interesting for me. And that was really the start of my journey into addiction, I guess, from when I was 12.
Yeah. So obviously, like, because there's a lot of people that stories that share, that people from that have got some form or have had a form of an addiction. People always think that they've got a really bad upbringing,
Mm,
or their parents haven't been there. So you
mm,
really kind of put a spin on it, and obviously there may be somebody maybe listening that has had an
mm,
opinion about it, and here you are today, obviously sharing that you had a really good upbringing, but it was just,
mm.
would it have just come down to your choice that you just went down this route of drinking?
I think I was just born an addict, to be honest, Josh. I think I was born with this illness and I'm not the same as other people. And I believe that addiction isn't really, it doesn't differentiate. You can come from any background, you can be rich, poor, in the middle. I think that this is just an illness and it happened to take hold of me. I mean, I've had therapy since that does indicate that I had some childhood trauma. Like my dad he was there, but was never really there for me. And my mum was very matriarchal, and I really had to be perfect to feel like she loved me. Um, so that could have played into it. who knows? But I do firmly believe that just I was born an addict, I was born different, and that I'm allergic to drugs and alcohol. And then some things happened in my teens. When I was 14, I was raped at knife point, and I got pregnant from that. Ended up, I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my mum and dad. I lied and said it was a boy that I'd met on holiday. I was too scared because I'd snuck out, you see, to another disco. At the time, I shouldn't have been where I was, and that happened. And I knew that my mum would go mad if I told her that I'd snuck out. So I kind of pushed it down. I didn't tell anyone, I didn't talk about it for 20 years. So from the age of
Wow.
14, I just started to get into some dangerous sort of trouble. That happened. I got pregnant. I had a terrible miscarriage. And then throughout my teens, I went off the rails, really. I did do well at school, but I did, and I could have had a really bright future. I probably could have gone to university and everything. But I was so interested in partying and drinking and being around other people that wanted to party and drink. And I was so interested in getting attention from men that I wasn't getting from my dad, that I just put myself into vulnerable situations. I was in nightclubs all the time. You know, I was promiscuous. It was just, there was just something not quite right with me, I think. I was never happy. I was never content. And drink, the drugs didn't come into it until my 20s, really. But drink was my best friend. And drink let me party. And it made me feel really grown up. And that's all I wanted to be, was grown up, outrageous and free. I wanted to break rules and I wanted to just do everything my way. And it led me to some, you know, some dangerous situations.
Yeah. And like you said there as well, because obviously I really want to sort of touch on, like, you know, alcohol in general, because as we both can agree, and I'm sure there's people that are listening at home that will be able to agree, it's very accessible.
Mm,
It's not illegal. It is
mm,
purely illegal over in this country.
mm,
And like you said, and I completely relate with that as well. You found something, aka, you know, a drink that's going to be able to make you feel in a particular way.
mm.
Um, and there's probably people at home that have had that feeling on a continuous basis, where it's made them feel a particular way. But I'm guessing that kind of leads on a sort of a dangerous route, doesn't it? Because you're relying on a substance. Because obviously,
Mm,
alcohol is still a, you know,
yeah.
it's still a substance. You're putting it in your body to make you feel in a particular way. So did this just kind of spiral out of control? Like you said, you put
Mm,
yourself in dangerous situations. Did then how
yeah.
did this lead on to you getting onto drugs?
Um, See, for me, there's no difference between alcohol, crack cocaine, and heroin. I mean, I ended up using crack cocaine and heroin, but I started with alcohol, and alcohol was always my main drug of choice. So for me, it changed the way I feel. And it, in the same way that crack, heroin, ketamine, whatever you're taking, painkillers, whatever you're taking, um, to me, the substance isn't as important as what it does for you. And what alcohol did for me is change the way I feel. It got me out of my head, which is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a different person. It gave me confidence. It helped me fit in. And for a time, you know, when I was younger, in my teens, it worked. You know, it did what it said on the tin. It made me confident. The consequences were starting to show up, but they were nowhere near as bad as they would get during my 20s, you know. What alcohol does do is drastically affect your mental health. It's a depressant, you know, it blocks serotonin production and everything. So my mental health was declining rapidly from the age of 14 until really at the age of 25. I had my first breakdown and my first suicide attempt. And at that point, the only drugs I had taken were ecstasy and cocaine, and it was still social, you know, it was still weekend using. The drinking had become a part of everyday life. Probably from the age of 18, I suppose I drank every day. But the drugs hadn't really come into it too much then. The alcohol, I don't think it gets the respect that it deserves. You know, it's as devastating as heroin. You know, it might not take you to the same places health wise, but it can do. But for me, alcohol is just as devastating, and it's also the effects that it has on you as a person. If you're addicted to something, it can be anything. Once it's got hold of you and it runs your life and you can't get off it, it doesn't even matter what the substance is. But the trouble with alcohol is, like you say, it's legal. It's more acceptable. You know, you can get away with being pissed, you can get away with drinking because it's like socially acceptable. It's not until it starts to send you, like it did to me, to psychiatric wards, you know. I hated myself by the age of 26. I hated myself. I had two kids by two different dads. Both of them had been violent alcoholics. I had chosen both of them because they drank a lot, and I needed someone that drank a lot because it made it seem normal. I didn't have to look at myself because I could look at them. Yeah, they were both violent alcoholics. The police had to rescue me and my 5-week-old baby when I was 25 because his dad had 23. Sorry, because his dad had beaten us both up. He couldn't open his eye for 2 weeks. He had a black eye. He was a tiny baby, and I actually thought that his dad was going to have to kill me for me to be able to get out of this flat. But a neighbour heard me screaming. The police came and kicked the door down, and never once did it occur to me, why did you get with this man, Carly? Why do you make these stupid decisions? I got with him and I got pregnant within 2 months. You know, it was a stupid thing to do. I knew that he was a violent alcoholic. I thought I could change him. I just always thought I knew best, I knew best, I knew best. And all of my best decisions were made when I was drunk, and they all ended up getting me into like really bad situations. So by the time I was 26, I was in my first psychiatric ward and I wanted to die. When I took that overdose, I wanted to die. It wasn't a cry for help. I woke up in the ambulance and I was ripping the tubes off myself and begging them to stop trying to save me. I was so angry that, you know, they'd brought me back to life. So I spent 2 months in this psychiatric ward, and you know, I loved it in there, to be honest. I loved it because they gave you sleeping tablets, they gave you Valium. You didn't have to be yourself. You could just sit in the corner crying. You didn't have to deal with life. And that's one of my fundamental problems. I didn't know how to deal with life sober. I don't know. I was never given the tools. I wasn't born with the tools to deal with life. I always needed something to help me just feel normal, not even to get me out of my head. In the end, I needed drugs and alcohol just to feel normal. And the decline from that first asylum to when I got sober, which was 13 years later, I was 39 when I got sober, was massive, absolutely massive. And most of it was due to alcohol.
Yeah. And that's amazing that you've been able to share, like, obviously in regards to, you know, like relationship status as well, because when there's obviously going to be some people that are maybe listening on here that are or have been in going through a relationship where they've been getting with people that people are like, why are you getting with that person when you know purely what they're about? Because I'm sure you had, you know, very good friends and family members that were like, Carly, what are you doing? You know, but
Yeah,
I
exactly.
guess I guess it's like what I try and explain is when you're classed as an addict, obviously we don't recognize it when we're in it, but we tend to make just decisions that people think they're nuts. But I think it's just because of the substance it's just taken over yourself. You're it feels like your decision making is completely off. Do
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And it doesn't
completely.
make sense.
Yeah,
Um,
no decisions I made sense, and I'm not a stupid person. I'm quite an intelligent person, but the decisions I was making, you would think that I was stupid, but they were all based on who I could manipulate, what I could get from that person. You know, these men had houses and good jobs, and you know, oh, okay, if I get with them and have a baby, that will set me up for life. And also, they can fund my alcohol habit and they can buy enough cocaine and we can party and stuff like that, you know. They weren't based
yeah,
on sanity. I was insane when I was in my addiction, completely insane.
yeah, and it's you know how you've explained it as well. Obviously, being going into a psychiatric unit. And you to say, do you enjoyed it? Because, like you said, you get everything on tap, don't you, with medication wise, and like you said,
Yeah,
so realistically, it was doing you in a favor to put you in a safe space, but they were still topping you up with things just to keep you calm.
exactly.
Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. I've never
Um,
said no to a drug in a psychiatric ward. Do you need a sleeping tablet tonight? And obviously, you're going to say yes. Do you need a Valium? Yes. Just give me all of it. Just give me anything. Give me all of it. Just give me anything, so I don't have to be me.
yeah, exactly. So you've kind of explained then from the beginning, you've had a really good upbringing. You've really put a decent spin on this actually, because again, I really want this to be put out there for people to understand that it's not just this particular category of people that are from poor backgrounds. You know, you had it good. You had a good family. So what was your typical day like, you know, during your addiction on a daily basis? What was that like for you?
Um, well, towards the end of my drinking and using, I guess probably the last 5 years were the worst. I had lost the job. I had lost the respect of most of my friends. My family were disowning me. You know, everyone knew by now Carly's an addict. I managed to keep a roof over our heads. I had two children. I have two children. Growing up, they were dragged through my addiction. So on a day to day, it was chaos. You know, I would wake up and pray that I was going to die that day, and I would go to bed praying that I was going to die in the night. And every morning when I woke up, it was just like, not again, you know, please God, not again. I can't do another day. I would promise my kids, I'm not going to drink, I'm not going to take drugs today. When I pick you up from school, I'll be sober. Okay. And I never was. I never was sober when I picked those kids up from school. I drank from the moment I could, which was normally about 9, half 9 in the morning. I would sniff cocaine during the day, and I would pick them up drunk from school. I would drink drive with them in the car, with other people's kids in the car. I would go, whatever I was doing, I was drunk. Even if I was going to do the food shopping, I was drinking on the way around. You know, I would walk to the shop in my pajamas to buy 5 litres of Frosty Jack cider or whatever it was. You know, like I'd gone from having a really good job in London, managing to hold it down, hold it together externally, to having nothing, managing just to keep a roof over our heads on benefits, and counting out pennies to go and get cider. And the cocaine that had just been recreational was then during the week as well, you know, and I'd be snorting it off the kitchen counters and telling my kids that it was mummy's medication, you know. There was a string of men. I would go from this relationship to that relationship. They were all addicts. I would move them in after knowing them a day. My kids would see us fighting. The police would get called. My house would get trashed. My son, when he was 11 or 12, had to come down and break up a fight with his snooker cue, bless him, of a big man that was trying to batter his mum on the floor, you know, at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and this child's got to go to school the next day. And I just wanted to die. I just wanted to die. I hated myself. I hated my life. I hated what I'd become. And no bills were paid. There'd be food in the house just about. Sometimes I'd come home and put the kids to bed. Sometimes I'd just leave a note for the kids and say, here's £5, get fish and chips, I'll be home later, because I'd be in the pub or I'd be around someone's house sniffing coke, and I'd get in at 1, 2 in the morning. And, you know, my kids were like 10 and 12 at this time. I was an awful, awful mother for a while. It was just terrible. It was just awful. It was just all chaos, and it was draining, and it was just so hard for everyone to watch, and so hard for me to live. And I just couldn't see a way out of it. I just didn't know what to do. And for ages, I couldn't even admit that I had a problem. You know, for ages, I just thought, this is just life. It became my norm. This is how I have to get through life. You know, there's nothing wrong with me. It's everyone else. I wish everyone would just get off my back. You know, if someone would just help me or give me another job or blah, 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 or if I could just find a decent boyfriend, it would be fine. But yeah, it was hell. It was just walking through hell on earth every single day, really, wanting to die. And repeated suicide attempts as well throughout that time. I got sectioned 4 or 5 more times during my 30s. Yeah, just horrible, horrible, horrible.
And guys, if you know, whoever's listening at home, you know, if you could see Carly now to then what you're saying, it's mad. Do you know what I mean? Because when you're speaking, it doesn't sound like you. And I get the same as well. You know, when I share my story with people as well, and they're like, I just don't see you doing that, Josh. It's like I'd say the same thing to you, Carly. I can't see you being like that, but you have this story to share. And there is going to be so many people that are going to be able to go, do you know what? I really, really relate with that. And it's amazing at how you can just be so open about yeah, do you know what? I did mess up, and this is
Mm,
what I did wrong. You was living in a lie in your own head about, I don't have a problem.
mm,
I wish everybody just got off my back. And
mm,
I can't count how many times that, I know so many people, including myself, that always used to do that as well. Nobody would
yeah,
ever be able to tell me that I'm an addict. I used
mm,
to control it on a weekend, like you said. But then, as we both can agree, and I'm sure people that are listening as well, that it only lasts for a period of time until it really does grab hold of you.
mm,
Um,
mm,
and I'm sure you've met a few people as well that have just been like that on a weekend. They go, I'm just a weekend user.
mm,
But normally, when things get really hard at home, or something drastic or a traumatic experience happens for your life, you then draw more closer to either, the drug or the alcohol, and that
mm.
becomes really your best friend. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? And
yeah, yeah. 100%.
so,
It was that was my only thing that got me through, And the other thing that got me through was planning to kill myself. That was the only thing, is like, this can't, I knew I couldn't live like that forever because I hated myself so much. And I just used to think, well, once my kids are a bit older, I can just kill myself.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a really, really awful place to be, addiction. It's really awful.
So with your obviously with the intake of alcohol you was having and obviously
Mm,
the drugs as well, it's not a great mix. It's like a concoction ready to
mm.
blow up in itself.
Yeah.
So with your mental health then, because I really do like to touch on that as well.
Mm.
Did you kind of reach any sort of support from anybody to kind of understand about your mental health and
Yeah.
also to understand that alcohol and drugs
Yeah.
were obviously causing the problem?
Well, yeah, I was always at the doctor. I wanted them to find out that I had some sort of mental illness that they could give me medication for, so that I didn't have to stop drinking and using. Because every time I got sectioned, they would say to me, "You need to stop drinking, you need to stop using," and I would say, "It's not that, you don't understand. This has happened in my life. That's happened in my life. If you had had my life, you would drink and use. It's not that. I've got something wrong with me. I'm psychotic. I've got this, I've got that." And I was just desperate for someone to say, actually, yeah, you've got something wrong with your brain, and here's some medication, carry on drinking and using. And I would, yeah, I mean, I was in and out of psychiatric wards because I just didn't want to live. I was like a shell of a person just going through the motions. I hated life. I couldn't imagine even living another day most of the time. I'd just be on my knees sobbing every morning, thinking, why have I got to do this again today? Why do I have to live? I just want to die. Yeah,
Yeah.
awful.
So was there a specific moment that you kind of decided to go, do you know what? Right. You looked at yourself in the mirror and going, Carly, I need to stop this now. I need to
Mm,
seek help.
mm.
Was there an
Yeah.
event that happened?
So there was a couple. The first one was in 2010, and I went to pick my daughter up from school. She was 10 at the time, so I went to pick her up from primary school. And she had been saying, "I'm not coming home with you if you're drunk. I'm not getting in the car with you if you're drunk." And I'd promised her, like I did every day, "I'm not going to be drunk, Matilda, when I pick you up." And I was, and she knew. And she ran back in. She said, "I'm not coming home with you." And she ran back in the school. And I sat there for a minute and thought, okay, just let her go then. Just let her go. She's better off without you anyway. But I don't know what happened. God stepped in, something propelled me into the school after her. Anyway, I went into the school after her, and for the first time ever, I fell on the floor and I was wailing, "Please, can someone help me? I can't stop drinking. I can't stop taking drugs." Um, and the family worker in her school, her husband was in AA. Like, what are the chances of that?
Yeah.
Thank God. So the next day, the school said they were going to ring social services and everything. Luckily, they didn't. They rang some friends, and friends came and had the kids and everything, because I was devastated at the thought of my kids having to go into care. The next day, I was in my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that, I thought, was the end for me, because I sat in that meeting and I heard the message, I heard about the allergy, I heard about the 12 steps, and I thought, this is it. I've found the solution. This is great. I'm going to stay sober. And that was in 2010. And for 4 years after that, until I finally got sober in 2014, I went to AA, I went to CA, I'd do half the steps, I'd get a sponsor, and then my ego would come back and I would think, it's fine, I'm cured. I haven't had a drink for 3 months, I'm cured. I haven't taken drugs, I'll delete all my dealers' numbers. I know what to do now, it's fine, I'm cured. If I do have a drink now and then, I'll just have a spritzer. It's all I know. I've got, I know all about it now. I know what I suffer with. I just won't ever let it get
Yeah.
bad again. And obviously, during that 4 years, it got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And during that 4 years, I met a crack and heroin addict that had just come out of jail, and thought he was the love of my life, and thought that I would save him, we would save each other, we'd get clean and sober together. And all the things that I hadn't done previously, I did during those 3 years. I ended up using crack. I ended up using heroin. I ended up getting a criminal record. I ended up almost losing my kids. I ended up crashing the car. I ended up again in a psychiatric ward. I ended up on a train platform in my pajamas, sober in the morning, because about to throw myself in front of a train, and the people on the platform all clamoured and got me back. And that was in 2014, and that was my last drink and drug, was the day before that happened. But I had so many rock bottoms, from 2010 to 2014. I had so many waking up thinking, that is it, I am done. I feel awful, that guilt, that shame, that just the pain of waking up and thinking, what have I done again? How have I done this again? But there was no consequences. Just anything could happen, and within a couple of days, I'd be like, "It's fine. It wasn't that bad. It's all right. Next time it'll be all right. Next time I'll moderate. Next time I'll save some." It really, really took me to the depths of death. If there'd been no one on that platform, I'd have been under a train. And that was my wake up point. When I got sectioned in 2014 in August, I just sat in my room praying, literally sobbing, praying. I didn't go and talk to anyone, and I just asked for help. And I knew then something happened, and I knew, if you take one more drug or one more drink, you are dead. You are dead. And for all the years I'd wanted to die, in that moment I was like, I don't want to die. I want to do this. I want the help, and I want to get sober, and I wanted it more than anything in the world. And as soon as they released me from that hospital, I went straight to a meeting, and I'm a real advocate of the 12 steps. I went and I got a sponsor, and that just propelled me. And now 10 years later, I'm here.
It's amazing, Carly. And do you know what, Carly, as well? You've really given us an understanding about making sure that we're aware that how easy it is to we've come out of that situation of the madness, yeah, either alcoholic, drug addict, your mental health was all over the place. You've got yourself in a 12-step program. You've surrounded yourself around good people. But then what I've always heard in the rooms, or people I've spoken to that aren't in the rooms and they have been clean for a period of time, they go, right, Josh, I'm all right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need any more help. I've got it together.
Mm.
And like you said, and you've really just been honest with that as well. And you said, well, I'd done that, but look what's happened. And you've progressed onto the harder drugs, which is obviously crack and heroin as well.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for sharing that, because I'm sure there's probably people that are going to be at home that's probably sitting there thinking, I think I've got it together. You hear the word like, have you boxed it off? Have you got it boxed off?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
I would love to know from anybody, if they tell me that they were once a addict, but they've boxed it off. I
Mm.
would love to know how they've done it.
Wow. Yeah.
Um, so, but no, it's amazing what you've been through, and it's definitely a miracle that whoever's at home that may be believing, if there's a higher power or anything, but somebody was definitely watching over you, Carly,
Yeah.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
For you to be here today to share your story today, which
Mm.
I know is going to be such a blessing to another woman out there.
Mm.
Through your story, you're going to be encouraging someone to change. So with your journey now, what you've done, how's your life changed now since
Mm.
you've overcome this addiction and you've got yourself involved in
Yeah.
the 12
My
steps?
my life in the last 10 years is just not even recognizable. I I don't even know that person that I'm talking about. I have to really dig deep to remember that person. It's like it was a different lifetime. And it's so good when I do dig deep and remember that person, because it's so important to remember where I've come from so that I never get complacent. But yeah, nowadays, I I don't hate myself. I hated myself for a lot of years, probably for 2 decades. Nowadays, I don't hate myself. Nowadays, I never pray that I'm going to die. Not ever once for 10 years have I ever thought, oh my God, I wish I could just die. And sometimes I test myself when I'm having a bad day, or, I feel a bit shit, because we do still have bad days. Life is hard. There's some days where you don't want to get out of bed, and some days where I just feel terrible. And I test myself and I think, yeah, but do you feel suicidal? Because remember how you felt then. And it's always like, absolutely not. This could be really hard. But today I'm just so optimistic that things will work out, and the plans I make today, I take steps and they actually happen. I had all these plans and dreams and things I wanted to do when I was drinking and using. I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that, I wanted to go here, but I never had the propulsion to make any of them happen, because it was all my whole life was centered around drinking and using, and when I could drink and when I could use and how I could get more, that there was no room for anything else. But now, if I plan to go on holiday, if I plan to do this, if I plan to save up for that, I actually do it. I run a nationwide property management company now that I part own. That's just a miracle. I'm my own boss. That in itself is a miracle. I pinch myself all the time that I don't have to work for anyone. I don't have to answer to anyone, and that I'm the owner of a company. It's wild. I'm getting married at the end of August to someone not in recovery.
That's
A
amazing.
healthy, non-toxic relationship, which is just wild, because I'd never had one of them. I didn't even know what one looks like. So that's hard to navigate for me, because I'm always expecting the toxic. So I've had to have therapy to learn how to have healthy relationships, and not everyone is horrible. My kids, who I put through absolute hell, my daughter's 23, my son's 25, they adore me. They absolutely adore me. Now, my son, when he was 17, he moved out because he couldn't stand me. I was a year sober at the time, but he still couldn't stand me. And everything that I'd put him through came up to the surface, and he couldn't be around me. So he moved to his nan's. And I was heartbroken. But he came home a couple of months afterwards. But these kids that hated me and that were reporting me to the school and everything, we are like best friends. Our bond is so tight. We can talk about the things that happened. Some of it we laugh about, some of the ludicrous things I did when I was drunk. They have completely forgiven me. They know it was my illness. They constantly tell me what an amazing mum I am today, and I don't say that for my ego. I say that because I sit in meetings and I hear mums or dads crying that have lost their kids, and they don't think there's ever any hope, or their family hates them and they've done such terrible things, they don't think there's any chance of getting these relationships back. But I promise you, I'm here to tell you that you can mend any relationship. You can mend in recovery if you just put in the action. And I will be making lifelong amends to my children, for all the things. Even though they've forgiven me, there's some things that still today are like, oh my God, I can't believe you left them like that. I can't believe, it's a constant journey. But today I know that I'm able to do it. Today I know that I'm reliable. I'm very reliable. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it, and I do it well. I don't like to let people down. And also today, I'm not too hard on myself. I'm not perfect, and I'm never going to be perfect, and that's okay, because I know all my good points, and I know that I'm still slightly bossy, I'm still impatient, I can still be a bit selfish sometimes, but I don't beat myself up for that, because I'm doing my best every single day, and loads of people around me absolutely adore me and love me today, and so I must be doing something right. I go on holiday, I go here, there, and everywhere. My life today is just so fulfilling, and I get so much pleasure in little things today. Little things like just taking my dogs for a walk, just going and sitting by a lake, just reading a book, or just, it doesn't always have to be about the big fancy stuff, although that stuff's nice as well. I get so much pleasure by just peace. My head's not going rah, 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 rah. My head is just peaceful. When my head does start to go rah, rah, I've got tools to deal with it, I've got meditation, I've got prayer, I've got journaling, I can write a gratitude list, I can speak to other addicts. And I'm just always eternally grateful that I'm not where I was 10 years ago. You know, I'm a completely different person.
Definitely, 100%. And I'm sure people at home that have just been so engrossed, they've kind of gone, we've gone from this madness to look at where you are today. You know, you're owner of your own business. You're getting married. So
Mm,
congratulations to that as well,
thank
Carly.
you.
And you've been able to be present. You're
Yeah.
present in this moment and being able to remember your days and be able to spend time with family, get relationship back with your kids. And it just shows that you're showing that there is hope out there.
Yeah.
You know, yes, that we can make some really, really crazy decisions in our lifestyle of addiction. But boy, if we put the work in it with our recovery, this
Mm,
stuff will come. And I'm sure it was a long process as well, Carly. You know, it wasn't just, it didn't click your fingers and it happened overnight. You had to
no.
put the work in as well. I'm sure you did.
Mm,
And I'm sure somebody at home that's maybe like, oh, but I'm putting the work in and not getting at it. So, what I would really like to know from you, Carly, from somebody that's been through all of this, what sort of advice would you give somebody right now, whether they're a male or a female,
mm.
that is, you know, going through the situation you've gone through?
Mm. The only thing I know is 12-step recovery. You know, I tried all of the other things. For me, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for 12-step recovery. So it doesn't matter whether you want to go to AA, CA, NA, DA, any of the A's. If you go to a meeting and you don't like it, find another meeting, try another meeting, try another meeting. My advice is get a higher power immediately. Don't, it doesn't have to be God. Don't be scared by the word God. It can be anything that's just more powerful than you. And as controversial as this may sound, I always say to people, if you're scared of the word God, maybe your drinking and using wasn't that bad. Because for me, I would have done anything to get sober. Absolutely anything. If someone had said to me I had to believe that the dog next door was God, I would have done it if it would have got me sober. So if you're wholeheartedly sincere in wanting to get clean and sober, you have to want it more than anything else in the world, and you have to do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes is actually quite easy if you're prepared to do it. Get yourself to as many meetings as you can. I went to 90 meetings in 90 days. I went to probably 180 meetings in 90 days. For the first 2 years of my recovery, I was flat out in meetings. You know, I made so many friends. I dedicated my whole life to recovery in the same way my life had been dedicated to drinking and using before. But what you need to do is stay really close to your higher power, because on those days where you're having a terrible day, on those days where, I don't know, a family member might have died, your relationship breaks up, you've got money worries or anything, and you can't get to a meeting or you're not in a meeting, your connection with your higher power and that faith has never let me down. You know, even on my worst days in recovery, where I might be crying in bed because it's just an awful day and I feel terrible and this has happened and that's happened, and I know in the back of my head everything will be all right. Just sit back, Carly, and relax. Your higher power has got this. Everything has turned out all right every single time for 10 whole years, you know. It always will. So if you're thinking of coming into recovery or you're new in recovery, get to a meeting, get a sponsor, get a higher power, and just please keep having that faith and keep reaching out. Don't be scared to reach out. Don't be scared to admit things that you might have done, because there's always someone that's done worse. There's always someone that's done the same. You know, just keep having that faith and keep putting one foot in front of the other, and your days will turn into months that turn into years and then turns into a decade, like me, and it just flies. Honestly, it flies by.
It's amazing. And like you said as well, there's lots of different ways, like you said, with higher power or the word God or anything like that. There's obviously there's meditation as well. There's things like that
Yeah.
that I got told about, and I was like, you can jog on, mate. I would never do anything like that. But I actually sat for 10 minutes and I actually really enjoyed it. It was actually really peaceful. Because obviously when you're coming off the drugs and the alcohol and you're living this new life, it is good just to have a moment where you can just sit with yourself and just be at peace a little
Yeah.
bit. And I'm
Mm,
learning that slowly but surely. It's a slow process,
it
but I'm
is.
getting better at it. And there's loads of other people that I know that are doing it as well, and it is really,
Mm,
really helping them out. Um, so in regards to like friends and family, then that maybe having a loved one that is being like you, Carly, that
mm,
has gone through all of this madness, but they're still stuck in it right now.
mm.
how is it best that they can support a loved one with dealing with addiction, that you would maybe
Really,
be able to
really
advise them?
hard, I think. It's really hard. If someone doesn't want to go to a meeting or doesn't want to get clean and sober, unfortunately there's no way you can do it for them, and for me, it had to be tough love. People had to start leaving me. People had to start saying, this is enough. We're not here for you anymore unless you get the help. We can't be in your lives. It had to be the threat of having my children actually physically removed from me that did it. I think try and get them to a meeting. Try and get them to any meeting, and just try and get them into the cycle of recovery. Try and get them into a fellowship. But sometimes you have to be tough. And I don't know how I would do it if I was a family member. If it was one of my kids, I don't know. I'd like to think that I could be tough and say, unless you get clean and sober, I can't be around you. And that's what it does actually take. That's what it took for me. But I think what
Yeah.
you have to remember is that this is an illness. This is an illness. And if it is your family member, don't take it personally. It's nothing to do with you. It's not because they don't love you, and it's not because they don't want to do it for you. It's literally they have got an illness where they have no control over. And unless they can get into a meeting and get some sort of higher power and control, and there's no hope, unfortunately. So yeah, the first thing I would do if it was someone, I always say, can you get to a meeting? Can I take you to a meeting? I'll come with you. Can you meet someone at a meeting? Because that's all I know.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that saved me.
Yeah, that's amazing, Carly, and thank you so much for sharing that as well. Because guys, everyone at home that's been listening to this today, we've been managed to hear such an amazing story. I've been so engrossed with it whilst I've been listening to you, Carly, as well. I know we spoke previously to this. I was engrossed then, and I'm still engrossed now. And I love being able to hear different people's stories, because everybody has a different story.
Mm,
Yes, that we may have been on the same substance, but
mm,
everybody has a different story. Everyone comes from all different walks of life, and I think it's really important to be able to get to get these different people on this show to be able to share about this, because there's so many people that go, I want to relate to that.
mm-hmm.
Um, so your hopes and plans for the future now, obviously, like you said, you're a manager of a business. You own your own business. You're your own boss, so no one has to tell you anything.
Yeah,
And you're
I know.
getting married as well. I
Mm,
know you're getting married as well. So to kind of finish it off, then, how do you feel about the person you were during your addiction compared to who you are
mm.
now?
The person, I feel really, really sad for the person I was during my addiction, because she wasn't a bad person. She did some bad things, and she caused a lot of harm and suffering. But she was broken. She was very, very sick, very, very ill. I wish that she had got the help sooner. I wish that she had listened and got sober sooner. Um, but I think I just feel sorry for her now. I used to have a lot of guilt and shame, but having done a lot of therapy and having done the 12 steps, all of that I've dealt with now. So that now I'm just quite compassionate about her, and it's the way I look at addicts that are still in addiction now. I'm just so compassionate towards them. We're not bad people. I wasn't an evil person. I was very, very sick. And it made me do some very horrible, harmful things. And the person I am now, I'm just so grateful to be this person. I'm grateful that I can be successful. I'm grateful that I can be a good mom and a good friend and a good daughter and a good partner. And I'm grateful that I just think the future is limitless now. Hopefully my business will grow. Hopefully I'll just be successful. But I just want to help people. I really am so passionate about helping people. Like, I see addicts that might be homeless, and I just look at them, I think I just want to pick them up and like bring them to where I am and just plant them in a meeting and let them see what their future could be. I'm so grateful that I had those experiences so that I can help other people to hopefully pull them in and have this experience as well. And I'm just so looking forward to the future. I'm looking forward to my next decade.
That's amazing, Carly. And Carly, thank you so much for today. You're such an inspiration. to myself and to all the listeners that are going to be listening to you as well. And like you said you're 10 years clean, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it shows that it's possible. You know, when I
Mm-hmm.
speak to somebody like yourself, and other people that I've met that have been clean for many, many years, it shows it's possible. It's
Yeah.
there. You can get there. You just have to keep putting the work in and keep
Yeah.
prepared to, you know, to deal with things in yourself, because it's us that we have to deal with, isn't it? And it can get
Yeah.
uncomfortable sometimes. But
Mm-hmm.
Kylie, it shows that you are living proof, you know, you are living proof that it is possible. You can get it done. So
Mm.
Kylie, thank you so much for today, for
You're
coming on. I
welcome.
really take my hat off to you. And I'm sure there's listeners at home that are literally clapping their hands going, do you know what? Well done, Kylie. Kylie, to finish off then, is there any way that any guys that could maybe follow you on TikTok? Is that okay? Would you
Yeah,
want to let
yeah.
people know on the live what your TikTok
My
name is so they can look
TikTok
you up?
is, I think it's Carly Charles 6. I think, yeah, Carly Charles
Awesome.
6. Just follow me, yeah, or reach out and message. And if you need help, I'm here, I'm around.
Fantastic, Carly. Carly, again, thank you so much for today. And
Thank
everybody
you.
that's at home that's come on today and had a listen to this episode, I really, really do hope. And I really do hope and pray that somebody's really got something from this today, because it has really been such an encouragement to me. So, Carly, once again, thank you so much. Okay.
Thanks.
Cheers.